What's going on, everybody? B Scott here with you, and on today's show, we got your quarterback sit starts out of week 5. I'm going to go through a lot of the quarterbacks, talk about which ones I'd start, which ones I'd stream, and which ones I'm going to be staying away from this week. So keep it locked and loaded right here at the first 4 downs. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. As I mentioned in the preview, we got your quarterback sit starts out of week 5. And I'm going to talk about a lot of these quarterbacks. I'm going to do it a little differently this week. Normally I go through each matchup, but I'm going to just hit on the starts. Some of them are obvious. I'm going to hit on some sits. Some of them are obvious. And then obviously there's some streaming options for you if need be. So before we get to today's content, don't forget, like the video, subscribe, share, thumb bell, all that good stuff. And then comment. If there's a quarterback you want to hear more about or I didn't touch on, drop in the comment section. I'll be glad to answer you back, whatever opinion that I got towards that quarterback ahead of week 5. So let's dive right into it. We're going to start with the starting quarterbacks. We got a lot of obvious ones this week. So off the top, Patrick Mahomes on the road against Buffalo, Monday Night Football game. A tough spot. Don't get me wrong. Buffalo's defense played very, very well, but it's Patrick Mahomes. You're starting him. It's just obvious. Set it and forget it. On the flip side of that coin, Josh Allen. He's also a must start. Kansas City giving up, I want to say, twice, second or third most fantasy points in the league to quarterbacks. So it's a smash spot for Josh Allen, who's played very well over the last few weeks. I like Matthew Stafford this week on a Thursday Night Football game against the Seattle Seahawks. Had a down game, don't get me wrong. They lost to the Arizona Cardinals, made a few mistakes, didn't look necessarily in sync throughout that game, but I think it's a great spot here against the Seattle defense that just hasn't looked great. Once again, on the flip side, Russell Wilson, you're going to be starting him here. I get it, it's a tough spot. Honestly, DK Metcalf gets owned by Jalen Ramsey most of the time. So we'll see. That's a great matchup to be looking for coming into DK's year 3. Can he finally get over that hump and make some plays against Jalen Ramsey? But I'm going to be starting Russell Wilson here. Obviously, you see the upside with the rushing ability. Ran a touchdown in last week against 49ers. Still is playing well and producing. So Russell Wilson's an obvious start for me. Kyler Murray, you're obviously starting him. He's been one of the greatest quarterbacks in fantasy this season as it is. So you're starting him every week. And he's got the San Francisco 49ers. That defense just hasn't looked as elite as we saw in the past. So I'm starting Kyler Murray. It's an obvious one. Kirk Cousins, another start for me. Going against the Detroit Lions defense. Kirk Cousins has owned Detroit. Plain and simple. He's never lost to Detroit while he's been in Minnesota. 6-0 against them. And a 16-1 touchdown to interception ratio against the Detroit Lions. 124 career passer rating. He just kills the Detroit Lions, plain and simple. So Kirk Cousins, an obvious smash start for me this week. Tom Brady on the road against Miami Dolphins, another obvious start. Miami just hasn't been able to put it together. They've actually played okay on defense for the most part, but they still just don't look great. They look like a poor football team at this moment. A lot of injuries they're dealing with, so I'm starting Tom Brady all day long. It's plain and simple. Aaron Rodgers playing Cincinnati Bengals. Aaron Rodgers looking like the old Aaron Rodgers, plain and simple. He's playing great. Obviously never makes mistakes, very rarely. And he's got the Cincinnati Bengals defense that's a little banged up. You saw it on Thursday Night Football. Jacksonville really got up in that game and had a chance to put it away. But I got to be starting Aaron Rodgers here. Must start against Cincinnati Bengals. Justin Herbert, you're starting against Cleveland Browns. Albeit the Cleveland Browns defense has really picked it up over the last couple weeks. You've seen it last week. Held the Minnesota Vikings to 7 points total. The week prior, 9 sacks. Held the Chicago Bears to like 100 yards of total offense. It was incredible. So it's a tough spot here, but it's Justin Herbert. He's played great. He's averaging close to 300 yards passing. Back-to-back weeks, multiple passing touchdowns. So Justin Herbert, I'm going to be firing him up here. In a tough spot, I get it, but you got to be starting him here. Jalen Hurts, I have a little question mark here. I'm in between whether I start or sit him. He's got an obvious rushing floor with Jalen Hurts. That's what he comes with. And for fantasy, he's played very well. So obviously it's a start, but it's tough. He's going against Carolina team that's given up literally just 725 total passing yards to quarterbacks, 7 touchdowns with 3 interceptions, and they've sacked the quarterback 14 times on the season, second in the league. So Jalen Hurts to me is a obvious start, but it is pretty tough. You got to weather the storm there. They haven't given up a lot of rushing yards, 70 rushing yards and 1 touchdown on the ground to quarterbacks on the season. So Jalen Hurts is on the fringe. I think he could still have a decent day here, but it is a tough matchup. On the flip side in that game, Sam Darnold has played very well through the first 4 weeks of the season, plain and simple. He's a top 10 quarterback in fantasy, and I'd be starting him against the Philadelphia secondary that really has struggled. On top of that, since losing Brandon Graham 2 weeks ago, you've seen that defense kind of fall apart a little bit, albeit they played the Dallas Cowboys, the Kansas City Chiefs. But Sam Darnold, 5 rushing touchdowns, playing very well. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's just making it, he's getting it done. Looking to get his 3rd straight 300-yard passing game. I like this game to honestly put up a decent amount of points here. So Sam Darnold is a start for me this week. And then Dak Prescott, Playing the New York Giants, you got to start him. He's played very well. Honestly, that offense as a whole, the team as a whole, has played sound football, plain and simple. They haven't had to lean on one single player to really get these wins produced at all. They're playing great football, and I love it. Dak Prescott, you got to be starting him here against the Giants defense. It just isn't that good. And then Lamar Jackson, he's a start for me at home against the Indianapolis Colts team. Their defense just doesn't look great. Lamar's always got the safe floor, so you got to be starting him every single week. Honestly, he's making some big plays through the air. Hopefully Bateman comes back and really helps that bolster that wide receiver core, and Lamar Jackson can get back to dominating the downfield throws like you've seen in the recent past. They haven't even really had to lean on him with his rushing ability as much. He's making the plays. So and the Colts secondary has really been decimated. So Lamar Jackson, an obvious start for me. So a few sits for me. Obviously Drew Lock or Teddy Bridgewater, either or for the Denver Broncos going against Pittsburgh Steelers. I can't start them here. Pittsburgh's defense hasn't looked great, but honestly, if it's Drew Lock, I just can't trust it, plain and simple. So I'm staying away. Same thing with Roethlisberger. Denver's defense is legit. You're not starting them. Jameis Winston, I'm tough. I'm torn right here. Washington football team, their defense has not been good. Plain and simple, giving up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks. But Jameis Winston, it's a Jekyll and Hyde. Who knows who's going to show up? On top of that, he's losing red zone work to Taysom Hill, whether they're running the football, vice versa, whatever. I can't really trust Jameis Winston, even though it's a good spot here to possibly be streaming him. I'm going to have him as a sit just because I think who knows how much volume he's going to get, considering, like I said, Taysom Hill with the red zone work and things like that. Yes, it's a great spot, but I just can't trust it. Also, Davis Mills playing the Patriots, plain and simple, you're not starting him. Baker Mayfield playing the Chargers, I wouldn't start him. He hasn't looked good at all this season. They're getting it done, getting victories, but he still hasn't looked great, honestly. Played a poor game last week against Minnesota. Missed a few throws, and I really think Minnesota could have won that game, but the defense held on to it. So I'm sitting Baker, obviously. Justin Fields going against the Raiders. If he's the starting quarterback, I'm sitting him, or Andy Dalton, either or. I can't really trust that Chicago Bears offense as it is, so no thank you there. Daniel Jones had a great game last week, don't get me wrong, but I can't start him against the Dallas defense. Maybe in garbage time he'll make some work, but I'll tell you right now, I can't trust it. I'm going to have him as a sit. Obviously, you're sitting Carson Wentz against Baltimore, plain and simply just hasn't played good. Heineke, I'm on the fence with starting him or sitting him, to be honest, or streaming him, but he's played very well through the last 3 weeks. But he is going against the New Orleans Saints team, giving up the 6th fewest fantasy points to quarterbacks, just 5 touchdowns to 7 interceptions. So, and Heineke's been prone to make some mistakes. So I can see, obviously, the Saints getting this victory done, and Heineke not producing well. So I'm going to have him as a sit this week, even though I like him going forward in some plus matchups. And the defense is so bad that I could see him just shooting it out in a lot of these games. So 3 guys that I have in no man's land that really I want to start, but I can't really trust, or who knows what's going to happen, is I'm going to start Ryan Tannehill. Obviously, at Jacksonville, this is a great spot to be starting Tannehill here. And if Julio Jones is happening to be healthy and ready to play this week, then I would think about starting Ryan Tannehill. But if he isn't, I can't trust that offense as a whole, period. If you can't really connect with any other receivers, your running backs, I know you got Derrick Henry. They always have a shot at winning these football games, but man, they look poor, plain and simple. Almost came back against the New York Jets, don't get me wrong, but still, it's just poor. They look poor. I can't trust Ryan Tannehill on the season so far. Even in a plus matchup, I'm going to say to sit him. Matt Ryan coming off a great game. Don't get me wrong, a huge game. And they're going against the New York Jets, which should be a great spot to be starting Matt Ryan. But I don't necessarily know. The New York Jets, their defense hasn't given up a lot of fantasy points to quarterbacks. Just 2 passing touchdowns to quarterbacks through the first 4 games, albeit they played some subpar offenses. But man, the way the stats look, you would say to sit Matt Ryan. So I'm just in between whether you want to stream him or not. Trey Lance, playing the Arizona Cardinals, should be a decent spot here for him. He can make some plays with his legs. If he's going to be starting or named the starter this week, I'm on the fence with starting him or not. I don't really necessarily want to be able to just trust him throwing him in the lineup. Arizona's defense has played good in spots, great in spots, and played poorly. So Trey Lance, I'm obviously probably going to sit him here, but I still just have him in no man's land. I think he could have a pretty decent day, but he's one of these 3 quarterbacks that I have right now. I literally have it written down as no man's land. So I'm going to be staying away from these quarterbacks just this week, just in case. And then obviously I got some stream options. So let's dive right into it. Zach Wilson. Honestly, a stream against the Atlanta Falcons, giving up 3rd most fantasy points to quarterbacks, the most passing touchdowns, and played pretty well against Tennessee Titans defense that was non-existent last week. So obviously, Zach Wilson, if you're looking in QB2 leagues, super flex. I think he's going to have a big day here, possibly 250, 280 passing yards, probably 2 to 3 scores. I really think so. That receiving core is getting healthy. We'll see if Elijah Moore is ready to play. Jamison Crowder's back. You got Corey Davis. So I like Zach Wilson this week as a possible stream, to be 100% honest. Joe Burrow playing the Green Bay Packers. Honestly, he's looked pretty good, effective. He has had a few turnovers. It's kind of, their offense has been up and down throughout the season. You saw it on Thursday Night Football, 0 points in the first half. Come back to win that football game, 3 straight drives with a touchdown. So I like Joe Burrow, one of 5 teams Green Bay is, giving up 10-plus touchdowns. So you got to start Joe Burrow here in a potential shootout, considering both these defenses aren't very good. And there could be a lot of points to be had in this football game. So Joe Burrow is a stream for me this week. And then Trevor Lawrence. I actually got him possibly as a streaming option this week. Playing a Tennessee defense that you saw last week just looks terrible. And Lawrence is starting to make some plays with his legs. He's looking good, to be honest. You know, I think he'll be able to limit the mistakes. Tennessee's defense just hasn't looked good at all. I don't know what's going on there. So I got Trevor Lawrence as a possible stream option this week. Obviously, QB2, Superflex Leagues. This is a guy you should be starting because I think he's going to have a pretty good, sneaky good day. So anyway, that's been all your quarterbacks, sits, starts, streams, and a couple guys I have no clue where to put, to be honest. So once again, if you have any questions or comments, drop in the comment section. I'll be glad to answer it. And then once again, like the video, subscribe, share, thumb bell, all that good stuff. And if you have a comment about any player, any fantasy relevant thing, drop in the comment section. I'll be glad to answer your questions. So for the first 4 downs, it's been B. Scott, and I'm out.